Hey guys, what's up? It's S0312 here with an update. Something I haven't done in a while. I used to get a little bit of videos for this. Mostly I got my videos for my Batman, but I got very little for my zombies predictions, for Easter eggs and whatnot. And basically what you see here is a timeline of events of every single zombies event so far. Um, well, actually, complete. If Origins is the so-called last map. And what you see is you got a timeline of every date ever given. If it's hard to understand, I'm sorry, but I'll go through it as we do. Now, this is basically a list of the events that we've gathered via games, and I've gathered from the internet, where they found out more information than I ever did. And these are the exact, these are the days that, or the year of which these events conspired, basically. Origins obviously being in 1917, with it all ending. Technically, um, it would be called a dead. Would be the one saying it's still continuing. There's no end to the zombie wave. The only reason we got to see into 2011 was because they time traveled to that year, which might explain a few things on this map, but we're going to have to find out for ourselves. So let me go ahead through this. I'm going to go through basically what I think is correct and what I think is incorrect, and then I'm going to switch to another picture of my theory of what the timeline should actually look like. So first, what we have here is Origins of 1917. Now, I don't have close-ups, but if you want, you can pause the video and make sure that I'm correct. But 1917, there's not really a date to the exact day this is. But 1917 is the year where apparently it happens. And this timeline's on a scale from 1950 or 1915 to 2015. So it goes through the course of 100 years. Everything's lined up exactly as if it was spaced out evenly into the exact day or year. So when you see 17 to 33, that's actually the length of a year's period in between, going however many times it takes you to get from 17 to 33. So, Origins happens in 17, and Mob of the Dead, it happens in 33. Now, this is where I get tongue twisted up. There's reports that Notch on Toten happens in 1939, and there's also reports of Notch on Toten happening in 45. So, somewhere in between that range is when Notch on Toten happened. I'll get to when I think Notch on Toten actually happened, just here in a few minutes. Verrucht, Shinuma, and Darius are reported to happen within a couple of months of each other, and I kind of agree with that, for the most part. And I'll get to my reasoning why when I go over my theory about these maps and their time and place. After Darius, we come to, well, they say we're supposed to go to Kino der Toten, but if you look at the dates, now these are from online, and these are from descriptions found on radio frequencies in the game and whatnot. They say Kino der Toten happens in 1967 and or 1968. There are a few websites. You can go to Call of Duty Wiki, and look up all these maps, and they'll have dates in the descriptions saying it happened in between this time and that time. And then I researched to see if anybody had exact dates. Somebody had exact dates, and he found all these throughout radio frequencies found on the map. So check your radios and see and listen for dates. They should point out exactly which date and time. And I might have to separate this into a few videos. If I do, I will put a link to the next video on the next page. Well, at the end of the video. So, after Darius, you're supposed to go to Kino der Toten. But since Kino der Toten happened in 67, and the next date in line is 5/Ascension, they both happen simultaneously. That happens in 1963. So after you go from Darius, you go to 1963 5/Ascension. Now, this is where it gets a little weird for me, where I think some of these dates may actually be wrong. And I'll go over this either in the next video or shortly here soon. Moon is apparently the next standpoint. Moon and Nuketown happen simultaneously as well, and is apparently the next standpoint before Kino der Untoten, before Call of the Dead, before Shangri-La. So, I'm not getting how this all works out. Moon happens in 1966, as well as Nuketown. So, at this point in time is when the bombs are coming down from the moon, and this is Richthofen's grand scheme happening. Bombs are coming down from the moon, hitting the Earth, making them crumbly and crackly in several different parts, as we see in Transit, Die Rise, and Buried. And if Kino der Untoten, Shangri-La, and Call of the Dead are all after this point in time, why don't we see any of these effects? Now, when we go to Kino der Untoten, it was obviously before Moon was ever thought of. It was obviously before they even thought about breaking the Earth apart. But, possibility for Kino der Untoten, Shangri-La, and Call of the Dead. As you know, in Call of the Dead, they went to the future. The original team went to the future by accident. Now, this could be the future that before Richthofen even had a grand scheme, or the possibility it was the future of when they left that point in time. Almost like the Back to the Future theory. When they went to the future, Biff went back, changed a point in history. They went back to a different timeline, and then if they would have went forward, they would have gone forward from the time that they left. Kind of the same thing. So if you think about it, say they went from Ascension to Call of the Dead. Moon hasn't happened yet. So if they teleported from Ascension to Call of the Dead, grand scheme never happened, so Call of the Dead still exists. Same thing we can go for Shangri-La, of course. Let's say they left from Ascension and went to Shangri-La in the year 2000. Then that's the point of time at which they went. They went before the events of Moon ever happened, and considering they left before it happened, it never will happen until they return. I could say the same thing for Kino der Toten, sorry, but they weren't really time travelers at that point. They were teleporters, but they never really had mention of time traveling that I could find. If so, I'll go back and relook. You can leave that in the comments if they have discovered time travel at that point. If not, then that's where my blimp is in this history line, which I fixed with my timeline. The next thing I wanted to go over is, again, Shangri-La. I have theories that that's not the actual date of once they went to Shangri-La. I'll point that out in my timeline map. And Call of the Dead happens in 2011. There's very little to go on. They say it happened in March of 2009 or 2011. They're not really sure. The next few dates that we go over is Transit, Die Rise, and Buried. Transit, these are all part of, Transit, Die Rise, Buried, and Origins are all part of this new map for Black Ops 2. Technically, what they're doing is they're saying the Earth is broken up into itty-bitty pieces now. It's broken into many different pieces. So what they're doing is in 1986 is when Transit is apparently taking place. This is many years after Nuketown, so Misty found Marlton already, and Marlton and Misty ran into Russman and Stuhlinger at Transit in 1986. This is uncovered within Buried of how they met. And then Die Rise happens 10 years later, according to several notes online and in radio messages. Die Rise happens 10 years later in 1996, which I think is pretty much accurate. I remember reading about, I think it was the Chinese World Trade Center. Apparently it got torn down in a specific year, and I think it was 1986. I'm not too sure if that's the right building. I remember reading about one of the buildings on that map that's on the map, it's visible on the map, but at that point in time period, it would not have existed. So that's interesting to read up on too. And we go back to Buried. Many people think that Resolution 1219, I believe it was, 1219 was supposed to be the year that this all happened. But no, that's just the name of an important document that was created in the year 2000. Also, people would also believe it happened in the 1800s. I would say yes, and I could say no. Maybe there was cases of zombies before the 1917 incident at Origins, but there's no physical proof within the games. So for right now, everybody's saying it happened in the year 2000. So I don't have really that much time left, so I'm going to end the video here. I'm going to upload it, and then you guys can go into this video. And then while this is uploading, I'll be making my second video. To be continued.